Now let's take a look at how we adjust fit. We put the saddle a little bit further back than you may be used to. We want the front of the bar, which is about where this concho is, in a vertical line with the back of the point of the elbow here. So we're just nestling against the back of the bulge that attaches to the scapula, but we don't inhibit the movement of the scapula. Now, I might also point out that we've got about a finger gullet clearance here. When we add our saddle pad, this is going to increase. So if it looks like your gullet's kind of close, don't forget we're going to check that after you add your saddle pad. And because the padding is built into the saddle, and this is what we fit to the horse, it's important to use a very thin pad. I like to use just a thin single fold blanket. Don't use two pads, nothing very thick. We also make a Western pad that I recommend because it's thin. It provides the breathability so that the back can breathe and it won't get hot. But the padding is built into the saddle. With a traditional saddle, if you fit a tree and then you add the fleece and two blankets, you've grossly distorted the shape and size and thickness of your horse, and it won't sit where it did with the bare tree. And that's an important component of saddle fit. And we have an article about that called The Pad Paradox on our website to learn more. So one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to look at the width. We put the saddle on the back. We want the front of the bar, not the front of the leather, but back here, and that's about where the edge of this concho is, about a ½ inch behind the front of the leather. But the front of the bar to be in a vertical line with the back part of the point of the elbow here. And that'll allow it to just nestle at the back of the shoulder without inhibiting shoulder movement. Now, once we get the saddle in place, put a little weight on it, and I like to be able to slip my hand through here, and I want a little bit of gap at the front. We'll give you a close-up here in a second so you can kind of see the kind of gap we want to adjust for. This does two things. It allows for the pad that we're going to add, even though it's a thin pad, we need to not fit snug, because otherwise when we add the pad it'll want to lift the saddle too much up off the horse and might introduce some bridging in the movement of the scapula. Next, we like to adjust the width by pulling the pads down or going to thinner pads if you need more width, or pulling the pads up or going to thicker pads if you need a little less width, if you have too much width, so that we've got just a slight gap at the front, something between 1/8 and 1/4 inch. We'll zoom in and show you that desirable gap in a second.
We're ready.
Okay. So we're going to check the angle by raising the skirt and pushing the neoprene pad to the horse and looking for a gap here between the bottom edge of the bar and the pad. You know, these bars are made at an arbitrary angle of 22 degrees, and horses tend to not exactly match that. So it's important to determine what angle your horse is, and if you're only using the top half or 2/3 of that bar making contact, fill in that bottom gap with the wedge shim that's in your shim kit. We make them in a couple different thicknesses. He's going to use the thinnest one. Now don't ever put them here in the middle of the bar. That could make a pressure ridge. Only on this bottom edge of the bar. So we'll put that right there. And now we've got a perfect fit. We'll raise it up to see that the fitting cushion is now parallel to his back, and that little gap that we were seeing along the bottom edge is now filled in. Yeah. Horse that this saddle is too wide on. And not only is it too wide, but the angle isn't quite right. It's touching at the top, but we have a big gap at the bottom. So we're going to not only change the width by going to the next thicker pads, the 3/4, but we're going to put a wedge shim here at the bottom to change the angle. Let me show you how we're going to do that. So changing the fitting cushions is really just a snap, literally. Pop them off. Take the next thickest size, line up the front of the bar with the front of the fitting cushion, line up the top of the Velcro all the way through. Now we're going to want to install a wedge cushion along the bottom, so we'll take our thin wedge shim, cut it in two right in the middle, and I know that she's pretty straight, so we're going to want it on both sides. And again, it goes just on the bottom half of the bar. Okay, let's take a look at that now. Now I can see we got a really good fit. We have the little crack at the front that we want. We can slip our fingers through easily, but the pad is now parallel to the horse, and we're getting good support all the way through the bar, top and bottom, and everything looks good.